Morning. I'd like to call the Gullah Geechee Historical Neighborhoods Community Development Corporation meeting to order. I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any opposed? I'd like to welcome our newest member, Mayor Allen Perry. Thank you very much for
Happy to be
agreeing
here.
to sit on here. Thank you. All right. I need a motion to approve the minutes from November 20th. I hope you've had a chance to review them.
Move as presented.
Any opposed? All right, we're going to go right into our unfinished business. Mr. Boxley, good morning.
Morning.
Like the bow tie?
Thank you so very much.
Those who cannot see you.
Thank you so very much.
Go into the unfinished business.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. And I would also like to extend a very warm welcome to Mayor Perry and thank him for his time and consideration and joining us on the CDC board. I know your commitment to the town of Hilton Head runs very deep, and we really appreciate you making our board a priority. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I also want to ask this morning that we keep our board member Terry Brubaker in our thoughts and prayers as he is dealing with some family-related issues, health issues, and so please keep him in your thoughts and prayers as we move forward. I've been texting with him as recently as this morning, so he's very well aware of our ongoing initiatives, and just again, please keep him in your thoughts. He and his family in your thoughts and prayers. As we move into our unfinished business, the first item, 4A, is related to our wayfinding application. And all three of these agenda items that we will address first are directly related to the achievement of our strategic action items. One, to support the stabilization and preservation of historic neighborhoods and cultural sites. Two, supporting and providing access to capital for both small businesses and for real estate, which again stabilizes the historic neighborhoods. And then also providing training opportunities for Gullah youth. So as we look at item A, our wayfinding application is moving along. We have identified, as you see in our notes, we have identified all of the sites that will be identified through this application. One is Old Schoolhouse Park, Robinson Junior High School, Fish Camp, the Rowing and Sailing Center, and the Fishing Co-op Rowing and Sailing Center, and the African American beaches to be commemorated at Dreesen Beach Park, as well as Mitchellville. These sites have been identified due to their cultural significance and also the educational significance of Old Schoolhouse Park, as well as Robinson Junior High School. By the way, Robinson Junior High School, I would like to add, was one of the sites that was identified by the elders in the community as something that was important that we commemorate in this first round. We will also work to include a stop at the airport so that we have an initial splash for our visitors that arrive by plane specifically during our tourism seasons, so that we can provide an initial introduction to the culture. That's something that will require some additional support and work. Our next steps, Saleos should be finished and complete with this development within the next 2 weeks. I was on the phone with them actually yesterday. And so upon completion, we will be scheduling a time for them to come back and do further cultural asset aggregation. So we still have some areas, some photos that we can take and upload into the application to do a formal presentation to the board and the community as well. And so these are the items that we have remaining, as well as at each location, we will have to designate signage. And I see Melissa just walked in. Hello, Melissa. And she and I will be working to finalize some of the signage. So by signage, I mean we will have to have some physical signage located that will actually have the QR codes at each location that our visitors can scan. And if you think about what that might look like as you visit different areas around town, we have the Cultural Poetry Trail that is part of Culture HHI, as well as some of the signage at Mitchellville that designates the QR codes. But we will need to designate signage as well. So that's something that we will be working, that I'll be working with Melissa to develop, design, and be approved by the town. Any questions?
I do have a question. Will you be doing a rough, I guess, draft of that, meaning will you be taking people through the stops and allowing them to actually see themselves, or will you just be doing a presentation?
So during the time that, are you speaking of when our contractors come back?
Yes.
Yes, we can definitely schedule a tour that would actually identify the sites. However, what we will have to work through is the process of signage. So that may take a little bit longer to go through the approval process and to actually get the signage located. But we can definitely, all of the technology will be complete. So you will be able to actually see what a visitor will see once they arrive.
I have a couple questions, comments. One, on the signage, are we gonna be able to see it, or is it gonna be like shared for feedback prior to completion?
Yes, I will definitely be sure, and once we arrive at, a final mock-up, we'll share it out with the board for final approval.
And the second question on the beaches, to be commemorated at Dreesen Beach, like, can you shed a little light in that? Is it, you're gonna talk about all of them, and then it's just the signage will be at Dreesen Beach? Is that what you're
Yes,
saying?
so a very good question, because a lot of the beaches now have been developed. As I discussed this with various team members at the town, as well as some community members, we came to the conclusion that it would be best commemorated there at Dreesen Beach because of the existing, for one, it's an existing town resource, and we wouldn't have to go through a process of locating somewhere within the private beaches, or not private beaches, but along the beach to commemorate this with a sign. So yeah, that was the thought process.
Thanks, that makes sense.
Thank you.
Just one thing that's jumping out of the page of me here, and I probably need to take this up offline at some point, but the fishing co-op / rowing and sailing center, I know we've sort of had a conversation about potentially changing that name over there, and I don't want us to get too far down the road with signage and whatnot until we probably need to talk about that. Yep. We'll do that.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
About communication. I'm certain that you have built into the process, because I think communication is going to be imperative for it to be successful. Certainly we want our visitors to take advantage of it, but we want the people who are here on a regular basis to know that it's there and to be able to access it. So is that something that is going to be incumbent upon us to do, or is that part of the due diligence of the people?
I actually will, that is part of my role. And so what I will do is make sure that we have a rollout that will feature, outreach to the community here, as well as to the community of Bluffton, because I'd like for folks to be able to come in and see what we've worked on. This is a pretty exciting project. I will also add one point, that our contractor had initially committed to providing internship opportunities for 4 young people to participate in this project. But as they went through the application process, they had a very good response. And what they did is built out more internship opportunities. So we actually have 9 youth working in 3 teams to bring this application to life. So those teams, we've got 3 teams, one of which is the content creation team, the web development team, and then there's a team that's working on the augmented reality development. So there are 9 young people that are actually having an opportunity to work on this project. So that's something that I think, again, meeting our strategic action goals of providing opportunities for young people, that's something that's pretty exciting. I would also like to, when we do have that rollout and launch, it will probably, my target is going to be an evening meeting so that we're able to invite those young people there as well.
I think that's really important. Thomas, will you make sure that we have a timetable of your rollout of the information to the public
Absolutely.
before you do that? Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. We'll move on into
Yes. Are there any public comments on this item before we move on? Hearing none, go on, Tom.
All right, thank you. So we'll move into item 4B. As we move into item 4B again, please keep in mind that these 4B and C are both items that, again, are directly related to the achievement of our strategic action items. So these items are the small business and the real estate development loan programs. I'd also like to take a moment and acknowledge Councilwoman Tunner. Thank you for being here today. So our small business and real estate development loan funds. As you follow along the presentation that you see on the screen, so our requirements, we've developed the requirements for this program. One, that that a business operate in our identified culturally sensitive communities. 2, that a real estate or land development project exists within identified culturally sensitive community, which are our Gullah neighborhoods. 3, our applicants must provide, credit information, but we didn't want to have credit as a disqualifier. So again, our goal is to strengthen businesses and strengthen our community. So as we look at and review the applicants, we will not allow credit to be a disqualifier. If there are applicants, and as you'll see a little bit later, if there are applicants that we happen to decline, we will offer them an opportunity to reapply later, as well as feedback on how they might strengthen their application for future reference. Our applicants must also provide documentation of their legal business status and land ownership status. And then we would require that they have a strong loan repayment plan. So eligible use of funding, when we talk about our small business project, startup funding, capital infusion into the business, equipment purchase, inventory purchase, the purchase of an existing business. So we have minimum and maximum. Our goal is to provide a micro lending situation, so between $5,000 and $50,000, and we also want to require that for every $50,000 borrowed, that we are supporting a living wage job. Not saying that that has to be the salary, but that it supports a living wage job. That way, our goal being to again, create access to opportunities, to job opportunities here on the island, as well as access to capital. So for our real estate development loan fund uses, site development and construction, new construction, support existing property acquisition, utility connection and infrastructure. And for this particular program, our objective is to provide a minimum of 50 and a maximum of 200,000 based on our funding availability. For our small business loan program, and we'll discuss budget in our next month's meeting. But for our small business loan program, we are designating 500,000 for that program, and for our real estate development loan program, $1 million designated for that. So again, with the minimum for the small business program between 5 and 50,000, and for our real estate development program, 50 to 200,000. Now, I will also add the caveat that depending on our funding availability, and that is something that we will continue, we will be working to raise funds to keep this project rolling. However, I also designated this as a loan program so that the money continues to come back in, even if we do not levy interest, so that the money comes back in and we can redistribute those funds into the community again. So that's why my preference for this was a loan program. I'm gonna pause right there and ask if anyone has any questions before I move forward.
Alan?
Yeah, so I'm really curious about the underwriting side of it. You know, who will handle the underwriting, right? So when somebody makes an application, who underwrites that? You know, is it the board? Is it, you know, are you working with another financial institution so that they can review it? So if you start with that, I got a couple other questions as well.
Good question. So I'm directly working with our finance department to provide support in that area. We have not designated exactly who. I have had conversations with Ms. Burnett to determine what staff member would be directly engaged in that. But I do have a commitment from our finance department to support.
Are there going to be underwriting guidelines that we put into place so that we make certain that, you know, one's not being favored over another one, that it's all status quo across the board, and, you know, you fill in the boxes?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely.
Have you had any thoughts, great program, any thoughts of working with a local bank that offers SBA to help maybe extend the dollars a little bit further, matching dollars?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one of our programs that we wrapped up in November of last year included TD Bank as one potential outside lending institution. I've also had conversations with some of the other lending institutions around the island, and I haven't had a firm commitment just yet, but they have expressed interest, so I won't name those individuals,
right, sure.
but yes.
And then the one last question, you don't want credit as a disqualifier, but what is the avenue to help them understand what their credit means and how to improve, you know, to set them on the right path? You know, so, you know, credit analysis, you know, there's wayfinders for that as well, but also groups that will help for educational purposes.
Absolutely.
Even repair.
Yes.
If necessary.
Good question. And so part of our goal is to be a partner in the community. So some of those same lending institutions offer some of those credit support services, and they have committed to working towards that. As a matter of fact, I want to begin a real estate development program with one of those lending institutions in the coming months to kind of tee up this program as well. So we do have a pretty strong commitment from some financial institutions to support this. I'm also going to lean into other entities around the island that can support that, such as, you know, I mean, there are, you know, you've got SCORE out there, you've got several, even several retired executives that have offered some, you know, to volunteer some time in support of our businesses here on the island.
Yeah, I would, I'll volunteer him, but Tom Hens could be a great individual to have conversations with as well.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so I have a question. As to echo what the mayor says, what's being proposed is excellent. But I have a question from the viewpoint of the applicants. For those who this is the first time, it could be intimidating for them. So what type of sessions is there planned an education piece so that they could know going into it what we expect for them to do in order to be successful, to talk them through them so that they won't appear to be so daunting to them, So there needs to be an education piece, whether than just, as opposed, in addition to just putting the information out. Is that something that's planned to get them in to have this conversation? Because if, for me, if it was my first time doing it and it's just overwhelming, I mean, is that a part of the planning as well?
We can definitely make that part of the plan.
You know, in support of what Pastor Johnson said, I think it should be, because I think you will have more of a chance of success, and it might just be an information session. And I've been involved with those when we've done grants through the Community Foundation, to say that this is something that you have to go to before you even apply.
Point taken. Thank you for the feedback.
Any other feedback or questions?
Couple.
Wait on Andre. Go ahead, Mr. White, I'll wait.
Andre?
So Thomas, what's the living wage? Are we gonna define that as is it $1 per hour, or is it, number of hours per week, or is it a salary?
I have not defined that, and I really did not want to go down that rabbit hole, because for me, that kind of gets into business operations. I just want to make sure that for the money that we are lending, that it is supportive of a job that is maintained here on Hilton Head Island.
Okay, and some of these, I guess, they're more underwriting oriented, and I know we're not there. So is there an expectation of what the duration of the loans will be?
Yes, good question. In my mind, and this caveat is, it is currently being reviewed by legal consult right now. So, but my goal is to have a loan period not to exceed 3 years, depending on loan amount, of course.
Is the expectation principal and interest every month, or interest only?
I have not explored that deep into principal and interest only just yet. I'm not quite there yet.
Okay, and then last thing, because I know we're not quite there yet. When thinking about folks that whose credit could be subpar, I guess if their business's net income or projected net income can service the loan, that's sort of more of a qualifier for those that, same with the real estate project, like if their projected income can actually service it, I mean, that kind of can help to offset the lower credit if, and then there's a requirement that they have to go through the credit repair process. It's not optional. It's like, well, yeah, you gotta clean this up.
Right. It's not meant to be, to exclude anyone, but just to kind of, work to support them as they grow and develop their business.
And I guess I know we talked a little bit about potential equity participation, but we're not there yet?
So that will be definitely written into the actual loan program. Those are some of the investment or the opportunities that we will have as a CDC in support of businesses. So upon application, that individual could determine, how they want to pursue this. Would they like to pursue this as a straight loan, or would they like to pursue this with the CDC maybe taking an equity position at some point that business could, cash us out of the opportunity. So, yeah, those are actually options that we can consider. I think we have a wide range of flexibility as a community development corporation to do that.
Then on the development side, are we prioritizing projects that are going to be like rental, like commercial and residential rental, as opposed to they're just developing to sell either lots or homes, or we're just open to all?
Well, my personal goal, because we have such a need for long-term rental here on the island, is to definitely support those projects that provide a longer-term rental opportunity, as well as some home ownership opportunities. That's actually one of the financial institutions that I'm in communication with is actually very interested in working on home ownership. So I definitely want to prioritize that specifically for first-time home buyers. At a later date, I do have some other information that we'll share related to the development of homes.
I wonder if we make it, at least on the real estate development side, that it's clear that, you know, the priority, or it's for, if you're developing your site for rental versus, right, because, you know, it could be, if the intent is not to allow folks to flip, then we probably want to, you know, either you're creating, I guess it's tough, right? Because we want rental, but then, you know, if someone wants to build a for sale project on their property, we could definitely help them there as well. So
Yeah,
something for us to think about it. Like, what type of development projects do we want to support?
absolutely. Yes, sir.
So to follow up on my question, say for example, you have a person who checks all of the boxes that we're looking for to get this done, but have absolutely no clue how to. Is there an avenue for teaching, for training, for whatever word you want to use, for this person to be certain that this person knows what to do, to put one foot in front of the other to get it done?
We can definitely work with some of our community-based partners, again, with some of the lending institutions that we have relationships with, to provide that level, a level of training, a level of education, financial education. Yes, we can do that. I don't, you know, as a lending, you know, as the lender and as the CDC, I don't know, especially right now, I don't know we do not have the direct resources to engage in a long-term educational process, but we do have the relationships with community-based partners to support that.
And they would be willing to do that.
They are willing to do that. Again, we had a 6-part series last year, the Money Talks series. So that was a soft kickoff to these projects that we're pushing in 2025. So I'm confident that we have the relationships in the community to move these things forward, specifically with some of the lending institutions.
There are third-party educational services that are out there that can be utilized either for business development or homeownership. So those parties do exist.
I'm confident that we'll be able to pull it together.
Add something?
Yeah, sort of a follow-up on a lot of what's been said. I'd ask that Mr. Boxley firm up those describing as third-party resources at the moment. You know, obviously, it's not something that we want to take in-house, or at least not yet, right? But if we sort of firm that up and formalize it, I think it gets back to Pastor's point of, as people approach, you know, I would rather it be, okay, you come in, you're asking, you're not quite sure, although the CDC doesn't have it as an in-house offering, but we are partners with so-and-so, okay? That way you still don't have to deal with this sort of mistrust that we know continues to perpetuate itself. As far as, you know, coming up with criteria, I think we need to obviously make sure that we are very tight on that. But to Mr. White's point, I got an email the other day that said that they know that I am not only for affordable housing, but that's the most important thing to me, okay? Not quite sure that that's 100% true, but it is important to me. And part of that correspondence was also recognizing, complaining about the appearance of mobile homes on our island, and particularly on their street in this particular case, right? And we've always said that we know that folks are participating in the demand for affordable housing through the rental of their property and having mobile homes, okay? It's a thing, it works. This program will help us move away from that product on Hilton Head if we perform in the right way, okay? So the point of criteria and qualification, I think we need to put a little bit more thought into, maybe there's a, sort of bonus points if you are providing not just long-term rental, but one that is affordable for folks, okay? Throwing that out to sort of provoke thought with the committee on that one, because obviously we don't want to say to people, don't bring a mobile home onto your property, but to me, this is an alternative, and given some bonus points for that alternative, maybe folks will be more prone to go in this direction.
Affordable, you mean that the rent would be affordable?
Yes.
So then we're into the AMIs, right? Like the area median income caps of, like, if it's a 3-bedroom home, right? There's the rent limit. So then you get into the, like, sort of the reason why I think it's hard, like why the mobile home product works for affordable versus market rate is because market rate cost doesn't support affordable. I think that we would be in this, thinking out loud, we'll be in the same position, whereas the market rate cost potentially for a unit is greater than the affordable rent. So typically the CDCs that are my clients, what happens here is that's where, like, the city comes in. Like, well, if it costs $300,000 to do this project for this unit, and the affordable rent, to make it affordable, it needs to be $150, then it's subsidized by, you subsidize down to $150. So it costs the developer $150, right? And then they can charge that. So I wonder, in tandem with, the fund that you guys have, that we have as a town, could there be, if we're asking or putting that out there, were we willing to do the subsidy markdown to where that unit could be affordable? Because I think it's asking a lot to pay market rate and then charge an affordable rent when the market's telling us that the trailers, right? Because the trailer's $35,000. At $35,000, I can charge, or $40,000, I can charge $1,500. $300,000 or $250 to build that unit, I can't charge $1,500.
It's a very good point, and I think that this is something that, as we move forward, we can definitely work with our town government to see what type of opportunity exists in the future.
Because that's what I believe the town invested in the project that that started by some of the local hospitality groups, where they're acquiring condos or houses, and they're asking for support to be able to buy that down, to be able to charge the affordable rent. So this seems like it would be something similar, where it's the CDC sponsored project. It's a deal, and we're able to get units, but we need to buy them down to the affordable rent.
Thank you for that feedback, Andre. And I think that there's definitely room for that. And we just are so fortunate again to have our mayor and our mayor pro tem on our board. So we've got some direct access, and we've got Councilwoman Tunner here listening as well, and listening in, and they're there to help us as well with some of these. So I think that in the future we can definitely work towards some type of amicable solution.
Yeah, the other piece I wanted to bring up, so we talk about, sort of third parties that will help with success. And I'm more on the real estate side now. The town does have the design studio. I just wanted to understand out loud how closely this potential program will be working with the town design studio on a potential site if we're going to, help someone develop it.
Absolutely. I see this as a further collaborative point for the design studio, and we have Miss Stewart here, Mrs. Stewart here, that works heavily, is heavily engaged in the community and making referrals to the design studio, and she's actually part of the committee that will perform the our actual vetting of the applicants. So again, we have that close connectivity to the design studio. This can also work to your point, Mr. Brown, work to alleviate some of the costs associated with development as well, to be able to have some preliminary site layouts that are done, that can kind of save some money on the part of the developer, specifically in the historic neighborhoods.
Mr. Boxley, I just want to touch on product offering. What is it that you're going to, what is going to be offered within the business side, the real estate side? And when I talk really about the real estate side, it needs to identify everything, right, in a product offering as to what it is that we will do, what we won't do, what is immediately a no. I don't want to be haphazard in the decisions that are made on the real estate, but then also, how do you file the liens on the property so that you make certain you've got a vested interest in it? What are the terms? Everything about it, because it's important that when somebody goes in, again, I do this for a living, and I've got thousands of products which I review to make certain I find the best home for somebody. And it is a daunting task to have all of that pulled together. So when we look to create the full product offering and the full underwriting guides, having that third-party expertise, finance is great, but they're not in the world of underwriting. Totally different aspect. And the ability to repay is really important, because the last thing you want to do is put somebody in a position where you're actually causing more harm than good. So I think that those guidelines need to be created and really vetted, so that we're doing the right job. And I would imagine it would take several months to create that product guideline, so that it's fair lending. I mean, you've got a lot of it that comes into play, even though it's maybe a grant type situation. But even from our, if it's Mr. Coltrane that's reviewing it, he understands that real estate world well. But I want to be careful that we're not creating something that could cause some issues, or those unintended consequences. So
Thank you.
It's a very tight world when you start lending funds out, and what you expect from the borrower. So
Thank you for that feedback, and point well taken. Go ahead.
I think what I'm hearing the mayor say, and come back forward with your budget, that you do have a resource set aside so that you can engage with that subject matter expert to give the confidence that we're talking about, right? Okay, fair enough.
And Thomas, I believe that when you do come back, all of those elements, I know we keep talking about it, but you have to have it tight to the point and vet it by a third party before you come back to us saying, this is it. We need to know detail. And I think people are jumping ahead, and I know that's in your mind because you and I have talked about these things, but they need to be put on paper.
Thank you.
What other comments do we have from committee? I'd like to open this item up for public comment, if there's any. All right, Thomas, you can move on.
All right, so moving on, there are a couple of slides remaining related to the process. So our initial, the funding process, the application is submitted, we have an initial review, at which point we check for all items, that are required within the application. And then we submit it to the committee that would consist of, the internal committee of myself, Mrs. Stewart, and a member of the finance team. But I'm also hearing from today's discussion that I may even need to consider, someone with the expertise in underwriting to make part of that committee from the outside. So I've made note of that as well. And the committee will review and score based on our criteria. Threshold scores will move forward for a disposition of either funded or declined. And once an applicant is approved for funding, they'll move into the closing phase, which will involve a deep dive into the requirements, the underwriting requirements, et cetera. That will also include, the terms of the loan, all of those details. And if declined, the applicant will be given feedback for the improvement of their application for a future funding round. And then we'll, final portions of those is the applicant or awardee, potential awardee, presenting to the board of directors, the full board, and then the awardee closing the loan. Next up, so again, if we have, again, specifically on the denial side, because I really want to make sure that we are strengthening and providing opportunities for folks to grow. So, and I know that Mr. Johnson made basically a plea for individuals to be able to have that education and support so that it's not such a daunting task on the front end, but also on the back end. If an individual is declined in the first round, we want to be able to provide an opportunity for them to strengthen their application and reapply in the future. So that's something that I think is very, very important. So our goal is to, again, not to be so overwhelmed with applications, because I do anticipate that once we open this up, there's a significant need in the community for support of small businesses as well as for real estate development projects. So we'll receive those applications on a rolling basis. We'll formally review them in March, June, September, and December, and look to award them April, July, October, and January. So that's a preliminary type of schedule to look at for the way that we review and the way that we award, which gives us basically a month in between cycles to to kind of finalize and hash out the details related to underwriting, et cetera, for those applicants that are awarded. So that's kind of the thought process on the process and cycles. And then our team, the internal review team would consist of a representative of the finance department, myself, and Ms. Stewart. And again, I definitely heard what is being said today, and will work to include someone that has a specific area of expertise in underwriting. So thank you for that feedback. Any further questions? Yes, sir.
A quick question on the funding process. There are several steps in between initiating the application and awardee closes loan. What time frame are we talking about? Because that could conceivably months. I mean, are we talking the 6 weeks? I mean, because there has to be some expectation on the front end of the applicant as well as to how long is this going to take.
I don't anticipate that it would take more than 4 weeks, actually. I think that we can move through that process. I think we can move through the process.
I would almost say that the responsiveness of the applicant would determine the time frame that it would take.
And that's a very good point too, right?
Speaking from history.
Yeah.
I've done them as quick as 11 days and as long as 90 days in blocks.
Okay.
And the goal is to stay away from the 90 days. Yes. But thank you for that, bringing it to light. What?
Andre?
Okay.
I was just thinking the 11 to 90, like people want,
Right.
yeah, they want a business investment, they want a loan, but then they don't provide documentation.
Right.
Doesn't,
And that's part of the education piece.
That's-
So that they will go in, it depended on you, how quick this thing happens. So that's part of the education piece as well.
Part of the education piece, and that's an opportunity for learning and growth, and an opportunity to apply in the future. Should they not submit information in a timely fashion?
And I'll also state it is understanding what information is needed up front to be able to make a decision. And sometimes you don't know what that is until you get into it. So again, it is part of that education piece, in having the person that is reviewing it that has that knowledge, right? Because one thing that you see might create a question on something else that you would never think of, but it takes that third eye that takes a look at it and goes, well, this is telling me something else. So that's where you've just got to be a little bit diligent in how you process the underwriting aspect.
Again, thank you, Mayor Perry, for your expertise in this. And again, I see strong value in you being here. And I do
And
my
Thomas,
best to not
yeah,
overwhelm you, because I know you're busy with your day job, for one, and the business of the town. So thank you.
Mr. Boxey will call on you. Take my word for it.
I did have one item. Do we, as long as the zoning code allows for the type of business to be operated on that property, we're okay with any type of,
So long as the zoning code, yes, absolutely.
okay.
I'm going to again open it up for public comment because Thomas had a ending to his presentation and we moved right along. Any? Hearing none, then Thomas, we're ready for your final item.
We're moving to item 5A, which is our meetings for the calendar year 2025. You should have in our, oh, there it is on the screen, our meeting dates, our remaining meeting dates as scheduled. March through, today's the 19th, so March through January 21st of 2026. And we do have, again, a schedule that will include some community-based meetings. Now, I will add the caveat that our April 16th meeting, as is scheduled, is the week of Heritage, so we will need to figure out an alternative date for that meeting. That's the week of Heritage. I don't want to get into that.
I can't make that week.
Yes. So we'll need to
Just
either.
making that known.
Right. Make it known up front. So
Let's have the meeting at the Heritage,
yeah,
18th hole.
we'll figure out how productive that would be. But if anyone, and we don't have to address that date, but what I will do, and what Ms. Irvin and I will do, is propose a couple of different dates that we could have an alternative meeting, or we can forego that meeting in April. So.
As I'm looking at these meeting dates, I understand, Thomas, and you've done this. If we do not need to meet, then you need to make sure this committee, because all of us have other obligations.
Yes.
So we need to, as we have been doing, look at the agenda each time to see if it's sufficient to have a meeting,
Absolutely.
other than the evening meetings with the community.
Base, yes.
I wanted to just pause a moment on the asterisk, the evening meetings. I found great success in some of the community meetings that the town has done, particularly in my district, okay? Obviously, some of those have been well attended due to maybe a mindset of crisis, okay? And I guess what I'm wanting us to sort of think through here is how do we use those dates as opportunities to milestones versus just saying we're having an evening meeting so that everybody can attend, okay? And I mean, if we were to advertise that the sky was falling and you better come on June 16th, they would probably show up, right? First, so I'm just want us to sort of think through how we send a positive message that will get a lot of people there so they understand what we've done and where we're going. Because almost a cliche for folks to say, well, you're meeting at the times where I can't be there. And then you change the meeting date and then they still don't show up, right? So we've got to put some type of bait out there to make sure that folks are showing up because, you know, as we have gone through an agenda today, I mean, we've got some good stuff that will ultimately benefit the community. We want to make sure that they are well aware of it and are able to take that back to their respective pockets. So just sort of think through that. I want it to be more than just an asterisk on the screen.
Very good point.
I'd suggest that you maybe have a conversation, with Ms. Woolwine, to help formulate, the drive that would bring people in, you know, updates on progress that's been made on these elements, but, utilize that expertise on the marketing side of the company.
Thank you. I also have, and I'm glad that she's here today. Ms. Stewart and I have been collaborating and kind of tossing ideas around and specifically on how to engage young professionals because this is a very important sector that we really need to wrap our arms around, especially as we talk about, to your point, Mr. Brown, the things that we're offering today. You know, we need our young professionals to be engaged and so that they know and can carry this message forward to the folks in their inner circles that may need and be able to benefit from these services. So I will definitely, I made a note of that as well to network with Heather in the communications department, Carolyn within the communications department to figure out ways and strategies. So thank you for that feedback.
I mean, is that a driver? I mean, it's 6:00 at night.
Are you cooking?
How good are your shrimp and grits?
We got crickets.
Like we talked about the third party providers, the third party cooking consultant.
Yeah, we'll.
Well, I just meant like in terms of if like I picked up on the word offering, right? So it's an offering. So when you're offering to people, like we're offering them, like food is part of the offering, but it's so that they can consume the things that we are doing. And then I don't know if that the younger generation, if they're more into cuisine, and if that could be a factor, it's more like a mixer, but there's like a part of it that is it boards that we display? Is it like a talking thing? But just thinking of like the community events that were held where it was like a mixer. Why can't when we go into the community with these meetings, it's more like an offering. There's no crisis, but we're offering things, but we are offering food too, right? So maybe that just the word offering sort of rung a bell.
That's a
Yeah,
good idea.
that's all.
That's a
Thank
great
you.
idea,
Thank you.
and I'm thinking about budget. I'm sorry, I'm thinking about the money. And if we did something like that, it would be advantageous of us to look for sponsorship to do that.
Absolutely. Thank you. We will need to formally adopt the meeting schedule.
So I need a motion, gentlemen.
So moved.
Second.
No, discussion? Oh, so we are removing April 16th from the
Yes.
proposed calendar.
Let's remove April 16th,
Okay,
yes.
so as long as the motion includes that, then I'm good with it.
Say it to-
All right.
Sorry,
So I
turn this
move,
into a town council meeting.
Not quite.
so I move that we approve the proposed meeting dates with the exception of the April meeting.
Second.
Any opposed? Okay, all in favor?
Aye. Whatever.
All right, thank you for adopting our meeting schedule with the exception of our April 16th meeting. That concludes, that portion of our agenda, Chairwoman.
Thank you. We have item number 6, which is public comment on non-agenda items. Do we have any? Having none, I will open it up again. If not, I need a motion to adjourn.
Oh, I have a citizen comment or question. Now, I know that, not putting Alan and Alex on the spot, but I was listening to the council meeting this morning from last night, and then I heard the part about, like, the Stony budget being drastically cut, like the improvement. I think it's like 3.75 for that area. If I'm mistaken, right, we were talking about there's like the PSD distinction for that line, and then, so is that from just Windmill Harbor through to Spanish Wells, or is that like, where the community, the Welcome Center used to be to Spanish Wells? And is that for like, and that's sort of like whatever project we're doing in that area, that's the budget? I just wanted some clarification.
So in the resolution, which is the tool to get it to the State Department of Transportation, the State Infrastructure Bank, to find out where they're going to take things, the county has come up with funding of $3.5 million for improvements within the Stony area, Square Pope Light, really basically from the end of Jenkins Island to Spanish Wells. And then anything that is remaining from the construction would be earmarked to go back towards that area. So there's a lot of unknown with that at this point in time. And we probably won't know for, the deadline for council to have really, both county and town to have this resolution back to the state is March 31st. And I imagine it'll be sometime after that, couple of weeks or more, before we would know where the state is going with everything. So there's a lot to be determined there. Council will have conversations about additional projects within that area, both from a town standpoint and a county standpoint, to see if there's additional funding from the county that can be utilized, or if there's a tax increment financing option that may exist through council's approval to provide additional funding as well.
I just add, Mr. White, and the mayor captured it exact. Senator Davis was integral in us starting the CDC, okay? As he delivered this new option to us as far as the bridge is concerned, when we found out that the referendum failed and there was not enough money to do everything, he made mention of sort of a master plan throughout the area. Over the years, we have had discussions out loud with consultants, also with the property owners in the Stony area about what could be. And the CDC exists because of that. So the mayor's absolutely right. We've got to do our job as town, county, and even state officials to try to cobble up funding so that we can do a better job throughout that corridor. And the CDC is going to play a huge part in that because it's going to be public investment, but you would hope that the private property owners will participate as well. And we all know that in a lot of cases, they don't necessarily have the capital to participate. So there's a lot going on here. I want to make this statement because I don't want anyone to think that because the referendum failed and we now have a smaller pot of money, that we're just forgetting about what needs to happen on Hilton Head. And I don't think that's the case at all.
Gotcha, appreciate it.
Anything else for public comment? Hearing none, then we're at the point of adjournment. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you very much. We're adjourned.
I will note that we ended in an hour.